'Cause your opinion don't matter. This a maniac is gonna step on whomever. It's time getting light, 'cause I'm gonna make changes. Kicking ass, taking names, cleaning house all the favors. I'm burning out the dead wood, burning down time. 'Cause it's only my way, so get your ass in They say that I've lost it, but talk me down, and I swear it's gonna cost you. Now I'm back, the boss of you morons, so never count me out as one thing you can count on. Yeah. It's time getting light, 'cause I'm gonna make changes. Kicking ass, taking names, cleaning house all the favors. I'm burning out the dead wood, burning down time. 'Cause it's only my way, so get your ass in I'm back, and I'm better than ever. Got a knack for making things better. Face facts, 'cause your opinion don't matter. This a maniac is gonna step on whomever. It's time getting light, 'cause I'm gonna make changes. Kicking ass, taking names, cleaning house all the favors. I'm burning out the dead wood, burning down time. 'Cause it's only my way.
This is Gateway City Sports. This is the Derek King Sports Show. Cardinals, Blues, Mizzou Athletics, Chiefs. He has it covered. The Derek King Sports Show, only on Gateway City Sports.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. I'm back 10 minutes late. You know, things happen. I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions as to where I've been, what I've been doing, and why I've been absent for so long. Really, to be honest, it's a lot to do with just being burnt out, with the pandemic and sports being the way that they were. And, there really wasn't a whole lot to talk about. And for a long time, it was forced to have to talk about baseball, with the strike thing, stuff that was going on. And, obviously we all know about the NFL and, my ongoing relationship with that. It's, life gets in the way and we all get busy and we have things to do. And that's just kind of where I've been. I've been busy working on other projects, other things. A lot of you that know me personally know those things too as well. But the reason that I am back is because there's been certain things that have arisen in the news, the sports news in St. Louis, that I feel passionate enough to get back on here and address them. So let's go ahead and start off where I think, we've said this before in the past, the 10,000-pound polka-dotted pink elephant in the room. The thing that we talked about most of the original iteration of the show and what we kind of went over and discussed and, kind of got wild and crazy into, did a lot of offshoots, did a lot of other interviews, did a lot of things, is this whole NFL St. Louis saga, toxic relationship that's went on over a long time. And I'm going to be completely honest with everybody out there, so that way where I'm coming from. A lot of the reason why I stepped away from is burnout on that. Just being so let down and disenfranchised by the city of St. Louis and the county and the Explore St. Louis, or whatever it's called now, the entity that runs the Dome and the Civic Center and all that other stuff, that they just rolled over with the NFL and said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this $790 million settlement and we're just going to pretend like none of this ever happened. Where's the money? Where's it being spent? Has anybody really asked that question legitimately? That's the question that I think a lot of us want answered. I personally would love to have that answered for me. But it is clear that certain particular people in power in the city of St. Louis and the people that run things, and particularly the people within the NFL, there are things that they don't want us to know. So there was this release from the Post-Dispatch, and actually let me back this up. There was an article, but let's get a little bit of context to the story. The context was this. a few months back when their settlement was done back in December, January, and the settlement was done, it was reached between the NFL and the plaintiffs. They sealed everything. And so, therefore, it was one of those deals where we were never going to find out the truth. We were never going to find it out. We were never going to know, right, what really went on. But then the St. Louis Post-Dispatch filed to have those documents unsealed so that way we could, in turn, see them and know what's going on. As soon as it had gotten to a point to where they were going to allow it to happen, the courts were going to allow the documents to be unsealed. All of a sudden, the Post-Dispatch backs away. Why? They had it. Why back off now? Kind of the same thing with St. Louis and St. Louis County, St. Louis City, the civic groups and all, everybody that was involved with CBC Explore, that was involved with the lawsuit. Why walk away? You had it. Dead to rights. You had them for billions of dollars on the hook. You let them off. Why? It was never said. It was never discussed. It was done behind closed doors. That really bugged me. That's why, for a lot of the time, I walked away, because I was so disenfranchised, as a lot of us were, by what happened, what occurred, what went down. So knowing the context of what it is that we saw and what we read and what we heard, immediately after the St. Louis Post-Dispatch withdrawed their motion to have the documents unsealed in this case, they rescinded it. It doesn't it just boggle the mind? Don't you ask yourself the question, you had it, you were going to out everything. Isn't that what media is supposed to be about? Newspapers, TV, all that stuff. Isn't that what it's supposed to be about, is letting the people know the truth and the facts? And you had it, and you let it off the hook again, just like St. Louis and St. Louis County, St. Louis City, the CBC Explore. They let it off the hook. Why? There's got to be a reason. There's this old saying that I always heard growing up, is that I might have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. That's kind of, the same contextual idea here. There's something else going on, folks. So that leads me into this PD story. And in the PD story, the one thing that everybody's talking about, there's a couple of things that I think a lot of people are missing. But the one big thing that I think that people are taking away from it is the idea that the Raiders were being floated at the end of 2014, 2015 to St. Louis. I was told that early on. I knew that. I think in a couple of shows I had said that, stated it. I know I had stated it publicly a couple of times. I just didn't know if it was on social or what the context of that was and how I explained that relationship with the Raiders potentially being floated to St. Louis. I do know that I had it on good authority during the owners' meetings at the end of 2015 when they approved the Rams' move from St. Louis back to L.A. I was told by inside sources in the meetings that, hey, the Raiders are your bet. Then, well, apparently the NFL and other teams were having conversations about that. Restructured ownership, a diversity initiative, rebranding, all of this other different stuff. So doesn't that, I think the bigger thing is this. This is the takeaway. St. Louis isn't a bad football market. Isn't that what they said? Bad football market, can't support it. No fans are going to support the football market. No fans are going to go. They don't come out. They don't show up for the games. There's no money here, all this other stuff. Then why are you talking about putting the Raiders in St. Louis if it's a bad football market, if you're not making any money? Cat got the NFL's tongue? If that's the case, what's the deal? So that's the one thing that I want explained. Let me take a real quick break here for a second. I'm going to be right back. Stay tuned because I'm going to levy my opinion on this. So just hang tight. I'll be right back. Stay tuned. All right, we're back. So where we left off is getting into my opinion of what is going on, what is happening with this entire thing, and why is it that we have been subverted, why it is that we haven't been told the truth and the facts of the matter. And I'm going to lay it out the best that I can. Again, this is tinfoil hat guy. Remember, I was told I was crazy. I was crazy that the Raiders were coming here. That ain't happening. You nuts? The Raiders? And we started hearing rumblings about the Chargers. I'm still hearing that. That's still out there. You know, we got the Jaguars thing that's kind of if and or buts, and if wishes were candy and nuts, something or other. I can't remember what that saying is, but the point being is that St. Louis is a football market. It's shown it. Look at how we supported the Battlehawks when they were here, and whether or not it's actually going to be the Battlehawks in whatever iteration that there is, what there might be. So it proves it in the article. So just on that alone, think about it from this perspective. The fraud that was perpetrated on the fans and the market by knowing you were going to leave in 2013. You knew it. There's no question about it. As soon as they had gotten the letter from the CBC that said, hey, we can't afford this. We're not going to be able to do it. That was their out. It was done. It was over. They weren't going to stay. That was it. It was done. They wanted that $775 million extension to the Dome. If it wasn't done, then they were out. And remember, let's not forget, it wasn't going to give the city of St. Louis another 30 years on the lease. It was just going to be another 10 years, and then they were still going to be able to leave. At the end of the day, Stan Kroenke was the only guy with the money. We know that. So my thing is that now we're starting to kind of get a bigger picture of what happened and why. I think there's still more to be had. I still think there's more meat on the bone when it comes to what's going on with that entire situation, that entire scenario. So I think that we have a lot more to see. Obviously, again, there's things that I know and there's things that I've been told, sworn to secrecy, all that stuff. Again, there's no way that I can come to you, as a viewer and say, as a producer, as somebody who's creating content, and honestly look you square in the eye and say, hey, this is factual. There's a lot of people that say things off the record. I heard this. I was told that. Those are things that I'm not willing to take to you and say, oh, yes, this is what was said. This is why. I think that a lot of this just needs people to look at the situation logically and go, okay, Stan was the only one with the money that could make it happen. The NFL knew it. They backed him. So here's the fraud part of it, right? So that they knew in 2013, going into 2014, that they were going to be moving the team back to LA. Let's say that's as early as it was. So you're telling me that they knowingly defrauded the fans, going around to media outlets in St. Louis, everything else, defrauded everybody, lied to them for what? Ticket sales? If St. Louis wasn't a good football market and they didn't have fans showing up to game, why were they worried about the ticket sales? They were going to leave anyways, and they were kind of in the craps anyhow. So what did they care for? Because they were still making money. They just weren't making LA money, and they were more concerned about that. But obviously, you could see what has occurred from that and what has happened. It's pretty obvious. So the bigger question that I have is I should rephrase that. Why did the Post-Dispatch back off? Were they told something? Was something alluded to? Did the NFL come to them and say, hey, by the way, just back off of this and we'll give you a little snippet of information? We'll give you a little sniff, something. Why is it that nobody in the city or the county or anybody else has said anything about the settlement? Because they've signed an NDA? I mean, that's what's got to be a non-disclosure agreement. What's in it? If they sign something to stay quiet, what's there? Why it can't just be $790 million. I'm telling you guys right now, there was much more there than what meets the eye. There was outright fraud committed. 790 doesn't cover it. And I listened to a few radio shows that had talked about this over the last week since the article came out. That they had said, well, it's just the lawyers. The lawyers just wanted the money. Well, yeah, I mean, a lawyer wants to get paid. They did the work. They were on this for several years. I get that. But it's the lawyer's responsibility to go to the client and say, here's what's on the table. This is what's being offered. At the end of the day, the city and the county and the RSA, CVC, whatever, they all settled. They're the ones that settled. It wasn't the lawyers that went in and said, twist arm behind their back and really just make it seem a certain way that, hey, you guys need to settle. No. There was something else behind that. Let's also not forget that it was not Stan Kroenke that negotiated the settlement. It was the NFL. It was Jeffrey Pash, the lead attorney for the NFL. He's the one that came in with their group of people. He's the one that settled. So if that's the case, because remember before that, just what was it, a week or so before that, Stan Kroenke had went to the NFL in a meeting or whatever, it might have even been a month before that, and said, hey, I think I could settle for $750 million. Then all of a sudden the NFL comes in, they have a closed door, meeting with everybody in negotiation, and they say, oh, hey, we settled for $790 million. St. Louis has been sitting on the remainder of that. The lawyers got about, 220, 230, somewhere in that vicinity. So St. Louis is sitting on about $550 million or so-ish. Where's the money? Now, here's the thing. They just announced the expansion of the convention center, which that was about a $300 and something million expansion, somewhere around that vein. They just announced that here the other day. So what else? That was already earmarked, by the way, just so everybody's understanding that. That was already one of those things that was already in the pipeline anyway. The extra 500 plus million from the settlement after lawyer fees was just a happy accident. Now, we've heard about the Battlehawks potentially, or an XFL team. Let me rephrase that. There might be rebranding involved. So, what else? Will says $210 million for the expansion. I would say, Will, go ahead and expand on that. What do you mean by $210 million for the expansion? Because the expansion fees are atrocious. I mean, that, expansion fees, remember back in 2002, the Houston Texans, what became the Houston Texans, paid, what was it, $750 million? $775 million for an expansion? Okay, $210 million for the expansion of the convention center. Okay, that's what you meant. All right. Well, I'm glad you clarified that, because I was kind of, what are we talking about here? Where the comments come in a little bit late, so I get kind of crossed up sometimes. But yeah, $210 million for the expansion of the convention center. So there you go. Now, obviously, they're going to be adding, I want to say it was 60-something thousand square feet of exhibition space or something like that. And I could be getting crossed up with the amount of seats that are in the dome, which is 65,000. But they're doing all of this. And I remember prior to, there was a event that had occurred where they were discussing the possibility of demolishing the dome. And I remember, and I don't want to put names to quotes here because I don't exactly remember who made this quote, but it was someone that was involved with that process and had said, hey, listen, the dome in the next, I wanted to say that they said the next 5 to 7 years is going to exceed what it's worth, what it can maintain, what it can bring in. The cost of upkeep, I should say. The cost of upkeep is going to exceed what they can bring in every single year with that facility. So if that's the case, why isn't that still the situation now? Why expand on that facility if it's just going to end up costing you more money? And then right after the lawsuit and the settlement, everybody said, "Oh, hey, we're not gonna demolish the dome. It's too important of a facility. It's the only facility in this area in the Midwest that I'm aware of that can host these bigger events like this and do multiple events throughout the convention center." So, there's that. There's always been rumors in St. Louis of NBA, of obviously now over the last few years of another football team coming here. A lot of people ask me, they send me DMs. I'm again not going to sit here and name names, but there are a lot of people who are in my DMs on social that are asking me, are we going to get another football team? When are we going to get another football team? To be honest, and this is the honest answer that I can give you, I am so disenfranchised that I almost don't care anymore at this point, because of the things that I know about the NFL and the way that they did things. I'm so just blah about it, because as much as I love the product, I love football, I'm so angry with the way that things were handled, the way that things were done. And obviously, if here in the next few years we were all lied to or misled from the jump by our leaders in government in St. Louis, that there was some kind of a settlement that was made to potentially be at the top of the list for another team that would relocate. And remember, there's several teams that are going to be coming up in that phase. You know, you've got, obviously, the Chargers situation out in L.A. is not good. It's very, very bad. You've got the situation with the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Again, very bad. Not a good situation. You've got the Saints lease coming up. You've got the Tennessee Titans lease coming up. The state of Tennessee and the city of Nashville have made it very clear that they're not building them a new facility. So the Titans have kind of pivoted and said, well, they just want to rehab the facility that they're in. Now, I don't know how far or where that has gone to at this point. I haven't really heard anything else on that subject matter, but it is there. So it's just something to consider. That's one of the things that you have to take away from it. So again, I go back and I say to everybody, just take it a step at a time. Whatever comes of this is what comes of it. Will popped back in and said there was a report by Frank Cusimano that the Dome has saved 5 weekend dates for the XFL team in St. Louis in 2023. Also, a report just came out that the Houston XFL team is playing at the University of Houston Stadium like before. Yeah, I just literally saw that come across my timeline as I was just prior to me reading this. So, you know, Will, the XFL insider, is always on top of everything XFL, as usual, per usual. Thank you for that, Will. But it's going to be very interesting over these next few months to see if there's anything else that comes out with St. Louis and the potential of another NFL franchise coming back to the city of St. Louis, because obviously the lie that was perpetrated by the powers that be in the NFL and by others, it shows and proves that the NFL market in St. Louis is alive and well, and there was never anything wrong with it. And it shows that they were willing to put the Raiders in St. Louis. And obviously the rumor we heard about the Chargers potentially coming to St. Louis and everything else. The market's good, folks. Just don't buy into the BS, because it's not true at all. I know a lot of people got their nose cut off about that. I was one of them. But it's just not true. So I just wanted to come back on. Obviously, it's been months since I've been on. And I wanted to come back on and talk to you guys and update you on where I've been, what I've been doing. I've been busy. Kids, life, running a household and doing all of those things every day. It's a chore, and it's everybody out there that does these things every single day. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to kind of go back to the drawing board with some of this stuff and try to reevaluate what it is that I want to do going forward, whether it be this show or something different. I've got some ideas. I've talked to some people about some things and kind of went over what it is that I may or may not want to do in the future when it comes to content creation. But, I'm always excited about the future. I'm always excited about what might come of some of this stuff. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Thank you guys for listening to my little rant that I came back on after months-long hiatus. And I will hopefully see you again soon. Again, I don't know when, but, it's like the great professional wrestler Sting always said, if there's one thing for sure, nothing's for sure. I'll see you guys later.